So I was talking to a CEO the other day, and they were complaining about friction with a particular leader, seeing it as a problem. Now, I wondered if there was a better way for us to look at this. What if friction isn't a problem, but an opportunity? And that was really interesting, and that really allowed us to dig deeper to truly understand what the problem was. So most people talk about or experience friction. They immediately decide it's a problem to be gotten rid of, right? A hurdle to jump over, a bump in the road that needs evening out. They think, okay, I just need to push through this. I need to be more disciplined. I need to stop hesitating. I need to just get on with this thing. And often perhaps you'll procrastinate and you'll feel guilty. And honestly, that's not right, because friction, it's a signal. So if you feel this personal friction around a decision, a conversation, a hire, a change, a strategy, a move, that hesitancy is telling you something. Not necessarily that you're wrong, but very often that something under the surface is unresolved. Now, everyone, especially leadership, places a value on being decisive, right? Moving quickly, carrying pressure. And when that friction appears, they treat it as a weakness, something to suppress, something to steamroller over. But part of you saying, well, this is the move, but part of you saying, well, no, it's not. Something's not right here. And that cognitive dissonance can be exhausting, number one, but also on a practical level, it just can stop you from acting. Now, you might be telling yourself you've made the decision, but your system knows really that you haven't come to terms with what that decision actually means. That's why friction deserves attention, because when you're ignoring friction completely, you often end up doing one of two things. Number one, either you delay too long and keep circling the issue without moving, or you force a clean, tidy action on top of really an underlying mess and then wonder why it doesn't feel right afterwards. So friction is a symptom of something under the surface that you need to address. You need to dive into the surface and really get and understand the underlying challenge and solve that. All right, let's talk about friction in others. Very similar. If there is a friction with an individual, most people we go to the surface explanation first, right? Oh, they're difficult, they're resistant, this is just the way they are, they're political, or they're vague, they're not aligned. Don't like that word, aligned. They're slowing things down. And often maybe that's true, but often that's just a visible layer. That's just a thing we're seeing on the surface. And underneath that friction between people, there's usually something more important, something more profound really going on. Things like unspoken expectations, right? Misaligned incentives, lacks of trust, avoided truths, a role that no longer fits, a power struggle that nobody honestly wants to talk about, or a level of clarity that perhaps the leader thinks exists that the other person doesn't really know about yet. So the friction is not the whole problem. Like I said, it's a symptom. Because if you're only really responding to the symptom, you tend to make poor decisions. So you either personalise it too quickly, i.e. it's me versus them, or you flatten it into a process issue and that person doesn't feel heard. It creates resentment and challenges later on down the line. So really, honestly, the better question to ask is, what is this friction really trying to tell me? Why is this harder than it appears? What's not lining up here? What truth has not yet been given a voice? Honestly, what's missing? And that's much more of a useful place to start. So good leaders get better at reading friction properly, because friction is often one of the earliest signs that something deeper is off, the thing you really need to address. And if you can read that signal early, you give yourself a much better chance of finding the real issue before you either avoid it for too long or you bulldoze your way past something really important that comes back to bite you later on. So when you feel friction internally or with somebody else, don't just ask, how do I get over it? Ask, what is this showing me? And that's usually really, honestly, where the hard work begins. So tell me, where are you feeling or seeing friction at the moment? Are you constantly seeking alignment? Don't like that word. And never finding it? Why? What's really kind of going on under the surface here? So either drop me a comment, or if it's more personal, drop me an email. Honestly, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye now.